Hey everyone, welcome to the Sober Shift, a YouTube channel dedicated to get real about recovery, share stories of hope, break the stigma of addiction. Whether you're in recovery, thinking about it, or just looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. Today, I'm super excited because it's the first official podcast episode on the Sober Shift, and I could not think of a better guest to have on than my wonderful and loving wife, Jessica Batkoski. We've been together since we were 18 years old. We've been through the hills and the valleys, the curveballs that life has thrown at us, and I'm super proud of her. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without her. And I wanted to share a different perspective in an addict's journey, and that is of a family member. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And we're looking forward to some comments in the comment section. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have somebody that you think would benefit from this content, please share this and let's jump into it. My question to you is, when we were in high school, because I was a late bloomer. I didn't drink in high school for the most part.
I was definitely drinking before you did.
Yeah, drinking a little bit, but no, nothing else, just drinking, really. And then I want to say it was the summer before senior year, you had come back from Rhode Island and you had learned that I was smoking weed.
Yeah.
You actually saw me, I think, smoke weed.
Yeah.
Like the first or second day you came back. How'd that, even though we weren't really dating, but like you still, I think you said you had some type of feelings about it.
Oh, I mean, it was definitely shocking. You could definitely tell that you were in your feelings.
Why do you think I was in my feelings?
I think it was just a rough summer.
It was definitely a rough summer. So I was in my feelings, and then you come home, you see that, hey, like,
because I was going to be gone the whole summer. So, I just didn't think it was fair at the time that we would continue on the journey that we were on for the time being.
Yeah, but this was in between junior and senior year. And then so we started going back to school senior year after the summer. Yeah. And then so that happened. But so the feelings you had when you saw me smoking weed for the first time, and I was drinking as well.
Yes.
So I went from not drinking, not smoking, not doing anything to doing both while you were gone during summer and you came back.
Yeah.
And even though we weren't officially together, you kind of felt some type of way about it.
Oh, yeah. It definitely took me by surprise.
So at this point, it was just surprise. It wasn't like, there wasn't like any emotional connection, obviously, there. Shock.
No. I mean, it's hard to disassociate between like someone having a problem or not having a problem, especially like during high school years, because we're all doing the same things.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously it was just, it was like my very first introduction to anything like that. So for anyone to see like, oh, this is going to be a problem, probably didn't exist at that point.
Oh, no.
Okay. Then went through senior year, did that, graduated, etc. And then we officially started dating, that summer after senior year. And then like you said, I think obviously high school, going into college, because we moved out pretty quickly together. So we got an apartment together. And like most late teens, early 20-year-olds, we were working, we were both going to school. So we were working jobs, we were going to school, but pretty much Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
we were out on the town.
Out on the big town of Raleigh, North Carolina, and maybe Greenville sometimes. We kind of switched it up a little bit, but we definitely were going out a lot, and we didn't have a lot of money to spend. So, and from those days, if you can remember, how would you describe, was there a difference in my drinking compared to the peers that were around us, or did it all seem kind of...
Yeah.
So there was a difference.
Oh, yeah. I don't think since day one I've ever liked you drinking.
So you didn't like my personality when I drank? Okay. And that's from like one drink, or was it like 6 drinks in? Like, what was that?
Then I could tell even like 3 drinks in.
And you were just like, oh.
And I was like, ugh.
Okay, that's fair enough. And then, so you couldn't stand my personality when I drank, but in terms of thinking that it was an issue, apart from, hey, he's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, he's partying just like everyone else, did it seem out of line based on everyone else's drinking behaviors back then?
I think the first time that I can remember of really taking a step back or taking a moment and realizing that this might be a problem is when we moved into our first house.
Okay. So what?
So I also feel like that's when we started maturing a little bit more and we started like separating ourselves from party days to like real life. You were starting your first career. I was starting my first career. And that's when I noticed like the drinking at home. Like I've never been a big drinker at home. So like in my mind, I guess it would be different if like we were both drinking at home, but that was never the case. It was like, I'm at home not drinking. Why is there any reason for someone to like drink by themselves? In my mind.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, obviously that's a very sound state of mind. I think so. To kind of catch everyone up, we moved in, we bounced around a little bit, but you're talking more towards, because I graduated in December and we moved into our first house in January. And this was kind of like our transition, I guess, from the party days to, hey, we're starting careers, we're kind of starting our life together.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were not yet engaged though, but we were buying the house in January. So I was coming home, and because I vividly remember like coming home and there after a while, because I would always keep beer in the refrigerator. And this is before I was doing any other like hard drugs. I would smoke weed occasionally, but I think,
Yeah.
I just didn't care for weed. Never really liked the feel. I'm an anxious person by nature. So I think that kind of just amplified the anxiety that I was feeling. But the drinking was more of a downer. I felt like I would get my confidence whenever I was drinking, or I was more, I guess, socially accepted, which is crazy to think about because, because I think that I drank a lot, and we didn't really start dating before I drank. So you dated me from when I started drinking to this point on.
Which I think is like another reason why I had such a hard time, because I was like very understanding to the fact of how fast our timeline moved. It's like we were party, 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 and then all of a sudden, like we have this house and real life hits us. So when you were drinking at home, it took me a minute to like really think if it was a problem or not, just because that's what we did for so long. It was like we just like went straight into like a whole new world.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I think, and on the flip side of that too, I think that I never actually was, of course, like I wasn't drunk like 24/7, but I think that for a majority of the times that we went out or we did things together, I very rarely, if ever, did things where I wasn't at least drinking a little bit, looking back. So I think I was kind of uncomfortable in my own skin. I wasn't sure, I guess, of people accepting me as like sober Joey or whatever. Because at this point, honestly, like I never thought, I think, what did I say? When did I say, you had asked me a couple of times if I would like slow down, stop drinking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we tried everything. We went from, okay, no more dark liquor.
Yeah.
Okay, no more liquor, period. Okay, let's do just like a 6-pack a night.
Yeah.
Or let's see if we can make the 6-pack last a whole week. A beer a night.
Very, very, fair things to
Yeah.
compromise on.
It never worked.
Yeah. And I think, not until the last 5.5 years. But I think too, looking back, because I remember vividly, the only thing that stands out in my mind from like those early days in that first house of ours and my drinking was I would be on the couch, we'd be watching a show together, just me and you, and I would crack a beer, I would drink it, and then I would get up and I'd go to the fridge. And I remember a couple of nights in a row, you're like, Joey, what's going on? Like, are you getting another beer?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is my third beer. I'm like, in my mind, it was like absolutely crazy of you to be asking me, like, am I going to go get another beer from the refrigerator? And you're not drinking, you're just chilling. And I felt the need that I needed to like drink for some reason. So taking that perspective, and this is, I think I've told you this before, but in my mind, I'm always, obviously, you know me, and our oldest daughter takes after me. So I'm always trying to get away with something. And the drinking thing, I don't think there wasn't any really way around it. There wasn't really any way to like, of course I could probably slam some drinks before I came home, which I probably did on occasion, but those tend to wear off pretty quickly. So for some reason in my mind, at some point when we first started living in that house, that's when I was like, hey, maybe I can do something else to substitute for the drinking, to still make me feel different. Because I think that's what it boils down to. I was trying to feel different for some reason. Because I was anxious, I was uncomfortable, just even in my own skin. It had nothing to do with you, obviously.
Well, and I think it had a lot to do with what we were surrounding ourselves with and who we were surrounding ourselves with. It's like, you know, and I just want to say, I think the drinking thing is 10 times harder to wrap your head around. That I've always said that than a drug thing, because it's like the guys are getting beers after work. Well, all the guys are getting beers after work. So why would I have a problem? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's very much more socially acceptable.
100%.
You stop at any gas station, there's beer, wine for sale, restaurants. I mean, anything and everything that you did was kind of almost centered around like, hey, that we can have a social drink here or there.
Yeah. So I can 100% see why it would take so long to get to the point where you're asking yourself, maybe I shouldn't drink anymore.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I think, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I remember, slowly kind of dipping because it wasn't an all at once, like, hey, I'm just going to go do all these different types of drugs. It like certainly escalated over time, from, dabbling here, dabbling there. Cause I remember like, cause at this point, like you said, people, places and things, I remember some of the crowd that I was hanging around, some of my friends that I had been friends with since I was 8, 9 years old. We were still friends. We still worked together. I got a job where I was working at. And so we were still hanging out and I was seeing what all these people do. And obviously from my mindset, I was on the side of, hey, I'm never going to do these things. So I had seen like all these negative things happen. But then again, just kind of being super, I guess, overconfident with myself and being very oblivious and ignorant to what addiction actually was at this point. I didn't think addiction was going to like grab me like it did.
I don't think no one does.
Yeah, I think it was more of a, hey, I'm too smart to get addicted. And because at this point, I thought like addiction was a lot about willpower. Like turn it on, turn it off. Like if you get addicted to any external thing, you're just weak.
Yeah.
You don't have good morals, you don't have good values, etc. And which is crazy to say, like, I mean, I still thought that myself of like a decent person. I had good morals. I was trying to, obviously had goals, aspirations, graduated college, had asked you to marry me, etc. So then, obviously dabbling a little bit here and there. And I think I remember vividly, it was a sunny day and I had taken you out back at that house. Because at this point, like my shame and my guilt and my anxiety was just so like just overwhelming to myself. I was like, hey, I got to tell her that I'm addicted to drugs.
Do what? No, that is not how that went down.
I vaguely remember. Okay, you tell me your version of the story.
It's not how it went down.
Maybe I'm not. Obviously, it's all a blur.
Any day.
It was sunny outside. I'm not talking about like the moods and the atmosphere or anything.
Actually, it was dark out. We were sitting on the couch and you stood up and a bag fell from your lap.
No, we're both wrong. You were in the bedroom and I was on the couch.
Well, yes. Okay, yes.
And I had it in my hand.
Yes.
And I literally
expecting me to come back into the living room and you tried hiding it.
I didn't even try hiding it. I remember I literally was like so out of my mind.
Like, take them back. You were like,
I heard the footsteps and everything. And I was just like, obviously I've been using. So I wasn't even, my motor functions were not there.
No.
Because I remember you came in, I literally just had it in my hand.
I was pregnant.
With our first child, yep. Which is a lot to process in a short amount of time.
I mean, and this is coming from a place where I never thought like I would ever even see you smoke a cigarette.
Which can be a lot.
Like,
yeah, explain that. Like where were you?
So the brain was not processing for me. I was like, and I mean, I was so naive to problems with like drugs and alcohol. Like I've never had been around it. I was oblivious, like completely oblivious. Like I don't know if I would have been able to like pick out a drug addict on the street. Like I was just, it was all of that was like way over my head.
And certainly not your husband.
not even my husband, just like the person that I had known since like literally 6th grade. Like, it was wild.
And yes, no, since 6th grade, didn't drink, didn't smoke weed until senior year. Yeah.
A guy who like literally would have never even touched a cigarette. Like, I can specifically remember you saying, like, back in the day of like, ugh, cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And so, like, I come back into the living room, you're just like sitting there with this bag, and I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, I'm not an idiot. Is that a drug bag? And of course, you like completely like played it off. You were like, yeah. And I'm like, what?
I think at first I tried to say I'd picked it out of Sam's mouth, our dog. I think that was like my initial knee-jerk reaction was to like try and,
Since
yeah, 100%.
I'm like, oh, with all these people in the house? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't remember exactly like what happened after that. I'm sure like there was emotions all over the place.
oh yeah, I mean, just all the questions, the shock, the disappointment. But I can remember even then, I was like, okay, he did it. Lots of people have done it as like a party thing.
Yeah.
Guess it didn't cross my mind that you were doing this alone at home.
I mean, yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, I guess.
Right. And so even from that moment, I was like, okay, like, we're going to get through this. No biggie. This is just a phase.
It's a very long phase.
And we're just going to move on.
Yeah, just sweep it under the rug. It's fine. We're done with it.
And I was like, okay, like, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. So that was like obviously like one substance that I was using. And then I think what I got mixed up with was, yes, that was the first time I got caught with any like, I guess, quote unquote, hard drugs.
Yes.
And then eventually evolved into, like anytime you take an upper like that, the come down is absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously don't recommend trying to figure out what that feels like, but they call it the blues for a reason. And I think of course, once again, I'm smarter. I can figure out how to manipulate these different drug uses, getting up, going down, trying to like, the roller coaster, but I was kind of the conductor. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to, use this, kind of like getting prescribed medications now at a doctor. It's like, hey, this was going to cause X, Y, and Z side effects. So we're going to prescribe you also this to combat those side effects. And that's exactly what I was doing with, my pharmaceuticals, I guess you could say. Was, hey, like I don't really want to experience this come down. So I'm going to use this other drug. And the crazy thing is about the other drug is that, this is the most, prolific epidemic that you have going on. So here I am thinking smarter than addiction, but millions of people, 100%. Like I'm, these other people are just too dumb to, that's why they're addicted. So I jump in using this other drug, and I remember now that one just kind of grabbed me completely, almost immediately. I remember, my tolerance built up so quick with using those. Like, I was using, let's say $15 worth a day when you would start. And then, just kind of like towards the end of like my run or my addiction, like when it was at its peak, I was spending probably $3,000 a month that was just to maintain that wasn't even to get to where I wanted to go.
Mm.
That was just to like not get sick. So it escalated fairly, and that was probably over a period of 3 years probably. But that's what I remember, because I remember it was a sunny day and we had that little umbrella patio set outside that house. And I remember sitting you down out there and basically kind of saying like, I think I'm addicted. Do you remember that?
No.
And then you literally stormed through the sliding window in that Zabelin house and you got in your car and you left.
Oh yeah, because I think that was you didn't sit me down though. I think I caught you again.
No, I don't think maybe.
I definitely caught you numerous a time.
I think,
and then you were like, okay,
I think
you have a problem.
Yeah, I think your catching me was like, seeing visible signs of like me being high.
Yeah.
Like not like actually catching me in the act of doing something.
The crazy thing is I never saw you physically use.
That is wild to think about.
Like out of all those years, I mean, I just like am a strong believer that just, I think God knew that that was something I could not handle to be.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I think like at that point, getting caught up in my own lies and like that just adds a whole nother level of like guilt and shame on top of you're just using and you're messing up your brain chemistry. I'm just depressed, just all the above. Bipolar. I was a mental wreck at this point. And obviously, just like the drinking thing, we kind of tried to figure it out on our own, I guess, at the start, right?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, because I was, even through all of the times that I had caught you and all of the things that we dealt with. I mean, all the money that was getting spent. I was still in disbelief that this was like actually an issue. Maybe, I mean, like you, like I thought maybe like, no, to be sure, like we're the exception. This is not like a thing for us.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think this is kind of the time that you were like, all right, well, we kind of came to the realization that you got to quit everything. And I remember vividly telling you, like, I will never quit drinking.
Oh yeah, we were on a trip. And you literally told me that. You were like, I hate to break it to you, but I'll never stop drinking.
What was your feeling when I said that?
Oh my gosh. I was like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you have broken my heart so many times. Like, the fact that we're having this conversation and you can't see that you could possibly lose me.
Not just lose you, but I think our first daughter was born already. Like, I think, that was already, like, we had a family.
I looked at you. I was like, that is like the wildest thing to say.
And at the time, I could probably say I 100% meant it. And you knew that, which was probably just mind blowing.
Well, it was so like that was the scary thing. I was like, he definitely means this, because here he has been like sneaking around with all the things, and he's just gonna like be so forward like that and say like, I will never stop drinking.
Yeah, and I, looking back too, at the fact that I was like, had the audacity to demand to you that I was never going to drink again. I don't know why I was so adamant about that. Do you have any kind of insight about?
No, that was wild.
Yeah. I think it was like me just trying to hold on to something. Like, obviously we had been through the ups and downs of you catching me using one substance.
I think you were in such disbelief that drinking was not your problem. But in hindsight, it was a problem from the very beginning.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, when I first started going, because I kept promising you different things, right? Like, oh, I'll go to therapy, I'll get on Suboxone, whatever it was. I was like,
yeah,
because you were trying to throw out any type of lifelines you could.
everything.
Because it wasn't like you were an expert in addiction or anything.
I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, we were just taking this literally day by day.
1000%.
It was something new every day.
It was just such a whirlwind, looking back. It's just,
of course, I was so supportive. I tried being so supportive in everything and super understanding. And I tried playing therapist, but obviously I wasn't able to relate to any of that. But of course I was like, okay, if you're not drinking, like, I won't drink. Like, I could care less if I never drink again. So I was like, I will support you. If you have a hard time, like, leaving the house and everyone's drinking around you, like, I won't drink.
And then
next thing I know, you're downing bottles behind my back.
Yeah.
It's like, wish I would have known this sooner, because I definitely could have used a drink.
Yeah, 100%. No. Yeah. Like you said, we were just trying to figure it out as we went. And I was lost, obviously. I didn't have any type of moral grounding. I was in this place of my life that, physically I was hurting. I mean, I was constantly sick. Just constantly.
Yeah.
Just, So physically I was hurting.
Always sick.
Yeah, exactly. Always sick. And there's multiple.
Cold to a whole nother level.
It was definitely a man cold times 1,000. I mean, I wasn't faking it. You might have thought I was faking it a couple times, but it was definitely sick.
Oh, I got to the point I didn't care if you were faking it or not. I had had enough. I was like, I don't care.
Yes.
Like, You being on your deathbed was like literally like another Tuesday.
Yeah. Another Tuesday. Oh, wow.
So
No, 100%. Yeah. No. So physically, I was sick. I was bankrupt there. I was, emotionally bankrupt. I had been covering up my feelings of what I truly was feeling for so long. And
same, dude.
yeah, yeah, holding up. Yeah. And then I was using substances as my solution to just being emotionally all over the place. There's anxious, depressed, shame, guilt, all the above. And then you obviously had all kinds of emotions.
Oh yeah, all the emotions.
Yeah. Not even.
Emotions that I had never felt before either. Like,
Yeah.
I've always considered myself a very strong person, and this definitely broke me down.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. Like, obviously going through all this, and you know this, but I've told you this 100 times before, but never have I mean, I still haven't met anyone as I think as strong as you are. And it's funny because, I guess not funny, but I'll tell people our story, or at least an abbreviated version of our story, and they're like, and you're still married? And I'm like, hey, she's definitely stronger than me, because I can say if the shoe was on the other foot, can't really say for sure what would happen, but I don't think I could have made it.
Looking back, I don't know. I don't know how I did it. I really don't. I'll never forget the first time that you were getting ready to leave for rehab and you sat on the edge of the bed just bawling. We both were bawling. And you looked up at me and said, "How did I get here?" I'll never, ever forget that, because it really did, even with me being on the other side of that. I took like a step back and I was like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? Like, it was so eye-opening for you to say that, because I can't imagine how fast that must have felt like that all happened. Just like literally in a blink of an eye. I mean, it wasn't until the night that I dropped you off that I had gone to my parents' house to tell them for the very first time that you even had a problem. That's how fast they were like, why didn't you tell us? And just how we talked about before, like, it just happened so fast. And for the longest time, I thought we had a grasp on it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, to be sure, like, we're not going to tell anybody about this because we're going to figure this out. And by the time we figure it out, there's no need to tell anybody about it because this is just a phase. And then, bam.
It
continue to
It literally felt like that.
That's how fast it happened. I mean, in hindsight, it was 3-4 years in the making of how long we were dealing with it. Maybe it was like 2 hours in, or 2 hours, 2 years in. But every day, every Sunday that we would go to my parents' house, I'm like, there's no need to bring this up. I don't want anybody stressing that, like, this might be a long-term problem. Like, that was never my mindset. I just kept thinking to myself, like, we're going to figure it out. And then boom. And I really, until the night that I dropped you off and I was sitting in front of my family, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I didn't tell you guys about this, but this was not
the plan.
planned.
I mean, you say like, hey, it's okay to make plans, but don't plan for the outcome. And that was definitely an outcome that we didn't plan for.
No.
So yeah, I mean, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, just bankrupt too. Like I remember telling you, because I couldn't get over this by myself. There was no way that I, in my own power, could overcome this compulsion and this just obsession of addiction, right? Like it just seemed a unsurmountable task. And at this time, like, I was just like completely over the whole God thing. I didn't think there was any hope in that. I didn't have any hope. I remember just telling you, like, it's just easier for me to be a junkie.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what I thought. There was literally, when you say hopeless, because obviously, like, being hopeless means, to me at least, that the chances of tomorrow being better than the day you're in is just 0%. And that's how I felt. I just felt completely hopeless. So just all around, just completely bankrupt. And I remember, obviously went to the first rehab, and I think we were still oblivious to addiction at that point. In hindsight, like, even though we had been through so much, and like, I had been manipulative, you had given me 1,000 chances. Like, we still had a little hope at this point. That
I was all in. I was like, this is it.
yeah,
This is it. Like, he's going to rehab, he's detoxing, and he's going to come back a brand new man.
yeah. And the wild thing back, looking in hindsight, obviously hindsight's 2020. We keep saying that, but I should have. There's major red flags because when I went to the detox center before I went to door to the rehab facility, like I had made friends with people inside there that were getting things in, and I was trying to my best to get a hold of whatever I could inside of detox, which is absolutely insane. Like, I literally a couple of hours ago was sitting on the edge of my bed out loud saying, how did we get here? And that's just the insanity of the disease.
100%.
I was sitting there saying, how do we get there? And then literally my wife, who had been nothing but supportive to me this entire time, my child, who I already knew I was going to miss her second birthday because I was going to rehab for the first time. And here I was in detox trying to continue to use. I mean, thank God everything happens for a reason. Thank God I didn't. But that should have been a red flag. Like, hey, this isn't all like sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns.
Oh, yeah.
So I think in total I was gone for like 12 days in detox and like 52 days or something like that in the first rehab. Something like that. It's 4 hours away. You had seen improvements in kind of my physical health and stuff from just being there. I mean, people probably have seen, if they go to any of my YouTube shorts, they probably have seen some of the transformations. But what was your, like, obviously you said like you were all in. This was going to be the cure all.
I was relieved because you were somewhere safe. And then I was also like, I had excitement.
Yeah.
That this was going to be behind us.
That's a good way of explaining it. Because I think I felt the same way. I remember, because we would have family days and we would come in and we'd have a family group therapy session at the first rehab that we did. And I remember like you coming in and there was excitement in the room. And I remember my mom, which was, at the time I was kind of like pissed off, I guess you could say, that she asked this question because I was like, how dare someone ask this question? But she like looked at the therapist and said, so what should we do to be prepared if he does relapse when he gets out? And I was just like so offended by that question. I was like, this is over with. Like, what are you talking about?
Don't you know? I'm the exception.
Oh, it's continuing to this day. Like, hey, like I got this. Like, I'm walking out with my chest bowed up high. Like, I'm sitting here in the meetings and the rehab, sharing my heart out. Like, I'm getting a star on the window for doing all these things.
You're like, relapse, we're done with this.
Yeah, and I think too, like one of the things, for me and for my story, the first rehab was a more new agey, like more spiritual and not religious type program, which is completely fine. I mean, if you can get sober doing that, then that's fine. But for me, it was kind of like, oh, all these new things. I was like learning all this like new ways to reflect and to be one with whatever. Like someone literally told me in one of the meetings there, like your higher power can be a doorknob. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, that don't really make sense, but I'll go with it. Like, whatever. But I remember you came, you were so excited still. You picked me up. You had rented a Mustang convertible. We listened to Post Malone all the way home. You did see me smoke a cigarette for the first time, which is kind of crazy to think that like you go to rehab and then you just come out and you're just like chain smoking cigarettes because that's all I have.
Well, here I am. I'm like, and that's the crazy thing is I also, without realizing, I got so used to you not being sober.
Yes.
That it was weird the emotions that I had when I did see you sober.
Yeah.
There were so many changes, even though they were like good changes.
I mean, I was surprised some good and some bad, obviously.
There was just like a whole new chapter of emotions when I picked you up that first day. It was like you were the old you, but different. You didn't look the same.
Yeah. In a good way.
Well, we needed like a haircut.
Yeah, I needed a haircut. I think I gained a little weight too, I think.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Was a good thing.
Yeah, I needed it.
Yeah.
For sure.
But then like seeing you smoke a cigarette, which also put me in my feelings just because, like I had said before, I had never seen you do anything. even like back in high school when I knew that you were high, I never saw you smoke weed.
The actual action taking place, which is crazy to think about.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So to see you smoke a cigarette, I cried. Just because like I said, it was like there was so many good things that came about out of this. Then to see you smoke a cigarette, like it literally I was devastated, which was so weird to like have that kind of excitement and then to have that devastation.
Yeah.
But of course I was like,
I'll take it.
all the cigarettes you want.
100%. Start a Philip Morris factory in the back. That's all right.
100%.
Yeah, I think at that point too, like we had both thought, hey, we hit rock bottom. We're bouncing back, baby. We're on the up and up. And it felt that way. I mean, I remember, but all that stuff, I was more aware of addiction.
Yeah.
I had learned a lot about the disease of addiction, triggers, and all the stuff, like what I needed to do. I was aware of what I needed to do. Right. And I just didn't really take action right away. And I kind of just thought, hey, I got this under control. I'm good. And so, fast forward not too long, I think it was like 2-3 weeks maybe, I went golfing and said, hey, I can have a few beers. Because at this point, I still had the reservation. I was going to drink. It's like, I'm 20-something years old. I got a lot of life ahead of me. I'm having fun. I'm still going to drink. Ended up drinking. By the time I got done with that golf round, I was off to the races. And I tell you this all the time, but it's like going to Disney World, right? Like you're on the carousel. That's fun. Go to Splash Mountain. Then you try to go back to the carousel and you're just staring at Splash Mountain like, man, that's what I really want. And so that was a lesson in recovery. Like that happened really quick. And I'm kind of cloudy, but I got out of rehab in August, right?
Yes.
Then relapse at end of August, I think.
But before that, let's just like touch base on, I think you had a lot of emotions and a lot of pressure when you got out the first time. It was a very awkward environment,
In what way do you think?
Oh, and like all the ways, for you of like coming back and our daughter like being in a whole nother stage of development.
At that age, it's quick.
And then like going from like not taking care of a kid for a good 3 months and then like just jumping back into it with like trying to stay sober. It was very overwhelming for you, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that also like the overwhelming comes, I'm very codependent. So I had known the sacrifices that you had made too. So it was like,
you're overcompensating.
Yeah. Like, hey, I owe this woman literally everything.
And then now you know that my family knows.
Oh yeah, golly.
Right.
It was like because at this point, like I still wanted to kind of keep addiction kind of like.
Right.
I didn't want anyone really knowing.
Yeah. So then, and then just like
your friends,
all the disappointment that you thought that you would put on your family and my family. Yeah. And then just like all of our friends and our friends' friends and like, I'm ready to go out and do things with you and be with you. And everyone's like, oh, come here and come there. And we did. And it was different. It was very awkward. You had people, I'm sure, judging you and
I remember people wouldn't shake my hand. It was weird. Yeah. It was very weird.
That was very weird.
Yeah.
I can remember specifically going to like one place and
the stigma of addiction just followed me everywhere. I felt
100%.
It was like, and granted, like there's obviously no excuse to use again, right? Like I take that wholeheartedly, but at the same time, it was a lot of pressure. I was kind of trying to overcompensate because I knew like, hey, like this wonderful woman has like given me yet another chance. But granted, like I relapsed obviously, and it was my best friend randomly who we were using together at the time. And he randomly asked me to come to celebrate recovery with him on a Friday. And I was like, nah. That's literally the last, because I asked like what Celebrate Recovery was, and he was like, oh, it's a Christian-based 12-step program. So I was like,
and you're first looking at him like,
I thought he was just high. I was like,
out of all people, like, you're doing this?
I mean, we were literally using together.
Yeah.
And he brought it up. I mean, it wasn't the first time you would use with somebody, and we would talk about getting clean. Our lives are like crazy. We should just stop. But so I think the only reason why I went that first time was because it was a great excuse to get away from you.
to not have to explain where I was going, to like give me a couple hours to like do whatever I wanted.
Right. You're like, hey, babe, this is where I'm actually going.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the first time I went, I was high. And obviously, like, I didn't think anyone noticed, but everyone noticed, including the pastor, the leaders and everything like that. And I was like, man, this was so bad. Something must have seeped into me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like looking back, like obviously, like the spirit was there and I was kind of moving and it was getting a hold of me. It was trying to tell me something, but I didn't know that at the time. To me, I was like, hey, I'll come back next Friday. This was great. Like this was like a mini vacation.
Right.
So I come back the next Friday and I remember Pastor Dale and David, they literally pulled me into a room to the side. And I was like, what is happening? Because I was high again, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, not of course, but I was. And they're like, hey, look, man, you're going through it right now. We want to sponsor and send you back to rehab. I mean, I had just gotten out of rehab. And I was like, I just missed my daughter's second birthday.
Oh.
I had just done all those things. And I was like, your family knew, my family, like, and I could just hear my mom's words. And I was like eating those words. And I mean, nothing against her. That was a practical question to ask, obviously.
Yeah.
100%. And I was just, all of that was rushing through my head when they were asking me. And I was like, nah, I'm not going back. It's like, it kind of reminded me like someone gets out of jail or prison. They're like, I'm not going back.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I felt. I was like, I'm not going back. And they're like, you're going to die. And I was like, you guys are crazy. Because compared to what I was doing to what I was doing at that point, because it hadn't like got back to the level yet.
You were just easing back.
Oh, 100%. I was on the bunny slopes. Literally. I was on the bunny slopes. I was just like, I'm coasting. So I went and, I shared and stuff like that. Obviously I don't want to go into too much detail about this, quite yet, but that friend ends up passing away.
Yeah.
And to be hit with that level of emotion and then just like hearing those words of like, you're going to die, and just kind of knowing like my family sitting there, they depend on me and all those other things. I don't really know. I think because at this point you were done.
Oh, yeah.
You were like, I don't believe a word you're saying.
Well, I'm just the type of person where if I know that I've done everything that I could possibly do, then it gives me the reassurance that hands are.
And there was literally no doubt that you had given it your all. It wasn't like a college try. You were a PhD and given chances. So I remember calling, Pastor Dale, and, the next day him and his wife came and picked me up, and they carried me to the second place I went to.
And you had decided that yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think after talking to like my brother and my family a little bit, at the time, you think about going away for 30 days. That seems like forever again, especially when you were just gone for 64 days.
Right.
You're like, another 30 days. That's a whole 3 months that you're gone out of the year, and your child, how fast they're growing. So they're like, it's just a drop in the bucket. Like, and then obviously the passing of, my friend, and not just a friend, a best friend.
Yeah.
And just seeing the reality of what can happen. I just was like, I got to do something.
And it was like,
oh yeah, yeah, you were like kicking me out the door. You were like, you didn't even say goodbye to me, I don't think.
No,
because they picked me up. I was alone at the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think, yeah. And it was, and this place was definitely, the first place was like more of a resort vacation type rehab facility.
second place was exactly what you need.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was 14 guys at a ranch style house. I mean, the people working there had been clean for 6 months to 3 years. We were cooking our own breakfast. It was sharing 2 showers with 14 guys, all recovering addicts, or, early on, sub 30 days clean.
The first time you were gone, I was struggling. I mean, learning to pay all the bills, take the trash out, having to do like things that like doing all the things that a husband and wife would have to do, taking care of the baby, it sucked. And then halfway through that, I realized I'm like, I felt independent again, which was a good feeling. So then the second time you left, I definitely felt way more independent and I was ready for you to leave.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit for that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't shocked at the response necessarily, not at all. I mean,
It's the response you needed though.
I think,
Like, oh my gosh, she's like really for real this time if I don't get my crap together.
yes. I mean, there's no arguing with that. I definitely needed that response. I needed that response a lot sooner, but obviously it's a lot hard coming from, I mean, I can only speak but so much for you, but I can imagine seeing someone I love going through something that I literally have no control over.
Right.
And so, when I arrived there, it was obviously I definitely needed it. And then at the same time, because this rehab facility was more Christian based, um, and we could use the phone almost right away. And I remember, I mean, you didn't want anything to do with me. Didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to hear from me. I mean, granted, you've been hearing the same
Right.
stuff from me that I was going to like change all these things for.
I had been hearing the same sob story for years.
Yeah.
It was like little boy who cried wolf.
I mean, over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think like that hit me hard. And I was, going back to the first time, I think both of us, like speaking for me, I was excited the first time. And the second time I was just like,
Something's got to change.
Something's got to change for sure. But I think I was more just like fearful.
Right.
And from your perspective, I think you accepted the fact like, hey, he might not, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like he might not ever get over this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the point that I got to of like the second time you leaving, I had to get to that point. It was you leaving was better in my mind to the feeling of me coming home from work every day, wondering if I was going to walk into you on the floor dead. Like that was such a crazy mindset to get to, but that's the mindset that I had, or like not being able to sleep throughout the night. Like every movement that you made, I'm like, he's getting up. Where is he going? Is he going to the bathroom? Is he going to the kitchen? What's he going to get? What's he hiding? And so you leaving again gave me the biggest peace of mind, where the second time around I could get a full night's sleep. I could get through my workday without thinking that I was going to get a phone call from the cop. So it was so nice of having that relief finally.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting there and just kind of staring at the ceiling and stuff. Obviously, there wasn't a lot to do at this rehab facility. I mean, like you said, exactly what I needed. And I don't remember. I wish I remembered the kid's name. He was younger than me, actually. This younger kid who was in the rehab facility. He was early on in recovery too, but he had more of a religious background than I did. And I was like, wrestling with this notion of God for a long time. I mean, I was a deep thinker, well beyond like what I should have been thinking about, I'm sure. But I remember asking him, I was like, if I were to read the Bible, where do I start? Because I didn't even know. He was like, I would read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I did. And I mean, there wasn't much else to do in there. So I was like, hey, this is the last shot. I'm throwing a Hail Mary. Hopefully something happens. And it might have not been like a burning bush moment, right? Where like everything just kind of evaporated and like just the feelings. But I definitely felt like a palpable weight lifted off of my shoulders after reading those.
Well, because you want to know what I think the difference was was the first time around, and then all the years before that, I think you did everything for everyone else. So all your reasoning behind of like getting sober and being better was for me or your daughter or for your family. And I think the second time around, it's like you had no choice but to start doing it for yourself. Like you genuinely wanted it for yourself. And I think that's very, very important in recovery, because I just don't, family definitely helps.
Yeah.
And having that support system, I mean, thank God.
And a motivational factor for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, I think the second time around, you were also doing it for yourself.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, looking back, like all those cliches that y'all would go to meetings and I would hear, like, you have to be doing it for yourself. You have to put your recovery first. It's your moment to be selfish. And I think I just fought that notion for so long because I am the one who was screwing everything up. How in the world could I possibly be even more selfish at this point
Right.
to like get myself better? To me, it seemed like I was going to be taking away, but in reality, I wasn't like really taking away by being selfish. Because if I wasn't clean at the end of the day, I wasn't good to anybody.
Right.
And like you said, it forced me, like, obviously, like the prospect of coming home to a wife and my child was pretty slim to none at that point. So I was like, all right, I mean, what else do I have to do this for except myself?
Yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. And then I remember, kind of giving, I can't remember how, I think you did pick up and I told you I was coming home early. Like 2 or 3 days early. I had, somehow manipulated my way to the director of like signing my 30-day certificate on day 27.
Yeah. And I think my only response was,
I don't think there was one.
why?
Yeah, that was probably like, why?
Back so.
Or I think you asked me like, where are you going? I mean, I think that was like literally like, I was like, I'm coming back to the house. And you were like, that's cool. And I remember I got there late at night and knocked on the door and you like pretty much you opened the door and you just like immediately like turned around and walked away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I was like, at that moment, it was, all right, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is, there's no more of this like talking.
Yeah.
Because where actions have to actually, take place.
It was a very quiet household for a while.
I was about to say, it was very awkward and very quiet.
Didn't really have anything to say.
I think I was trying sleeping with one eye open because I thought you might try and do something to me while I was sleeping. Sometimes I still feel that way, but.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, and I wish like everything was obviously like you would say, oh, well, that has to be the end of the story there.
Right.
Unfortunately not. I made it a little while though this time. It was like 7 months.
Yeah.
6-7 months, but got home in December from the second rehab. January, got a new job offer. And then beginning of February, I believe it was like February 4th because it was Super Bowl Sunday. Because we went from not talking to that household to somehow in February, you found out you were pregnant with our second daughter.
Yes, but there was a turning point before that.
What was your turning point in your mind?
So we were laying in bed one night. This was before I found out I was pregnant.
It wasn't like mine just naturally like good looks?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We were laying in bed and one of my clients had gotten me this devotional book and I was reading it every night before bed. And I'm pretty sure I have the page saved still, but I read it and it applied to me and our situation so much that I looked down, I was reading it and I was like, oh my gosh. I look up and I look at you and I was like, okay. Like, okay, we'll do this.
One last try.
I had no clue why I just like blurted that out. And then February hit.
Yep.
So that night in bed, we hugged, we talked, and we were good.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a huge change.
Yeah.
And I think that was like one of the moments that I think it's because I genuinely started noticing a huge difference in you in like so many good ways.
Yeah.
And I could tell like he's for real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because, I mean, typically I was trying to get so much experience, strength, and hope from people that had been maybe in my shoes before. And they're like, they kept saying, you go 100 miles in the woods, you got to come 100 miles out. And as an addict, I wanted the shortest path to the solution, straight line, A to B. I wanted to skip all the bad stuff. I still do that time to time, like avoid communication so I can kind of just get to we're all good, right? And that's kind of how I thought about it. But And in such a short amount of time, it's crazy to me that something could have came over you to like see me in a different light.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, especially after everything I put you through, right?
Right.
I mean, insane. I mean,
Yeah.
only God could do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally, like, I think that was the moment for me. I mean, every night you were gone, I was praying, but like, that was definitely the moment for me that God just like put it on my heart to keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like, I did pretty good, got a job, and I was, took a step back in my career, I would say, to kind of start over. I was very humble at this point. Like, humility is like hit me,
Yeah.
like a brick wall. And I think it was just God speaking to me, right? Like, hey, you're no better than anybody. You're not above anybody. You're not below anybody. You need to, start from square one. And I think that taught me a lot along the way. And then somewhere around the summertime, I mean, like I said, every single time that I would relapse, it would be a shorter period of time. And, like every single time I would start, it would like the feelings, because I'm hyper aware at this point
Yes.
of addiction, of where this is leading. I knew exactly like, hey, I've done this how many times before? And it was obviously like the guilt and the shame. And because, I mean, I was about to have another daughter.
Right.
I mean, we were about to have another daughter. I mean, technically you were about to have her, but I was hopefully going to be around. And I was just, every single day, I was like, man, I cannot believe I'm doing this again. The insanity. And it's always something small, I think, from my experience when I hear other people's stories, that's fine, just like the nail in the coffin. And I remember this one guy that was a using acquaintance, I guess you could say. And I remember I had fronted him a whole bunch of stuff in the past, like helped him out when he was low, helped him out when he got robbed, whatever it was. I was there to help him out and bail him out. And I remember calling him and asking pretty much like, hey, it's time to pay up.
Mm.
Like I'm trying to cash this check. And he told me on the phone, he was like, I can't do it. And it was like it was like a light bulb, it's like, these are the people you're, leaving your family to go try and quote unquote hang out with.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, like, obviously all the different things, like those were like the true things that kind of got me clean and got, and God being number one. But that was like the very small, minute thing towards the end. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is just, no, it was exhausting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I remember you knew, like, obviously you knew I was back using a little bit, but you didn't know to what extent, I believe, right?
No.
Like, you didn't know I was using, or you kind of knew?
Oh, no. Because we had to do that marathon that morning.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that story. I don't even want to think about that. It makes me want to throw up.
Yeah. So we had to do that marathon that morning, and I came downstairs and I was like, what are you doing?
I had that straw in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And, yeah.
And did we already have our second?
No, not yet.
That's right. Yeah.
Nope, because I was pushing Riley in that,
That's
our oldest, in the stroller
Yep.
during the 5K. And then we went to the state fair, and I think you were kind of happy. You were like looking at me, you're like, yeah, he deserves all the pain he's feeling right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember on the way. But anyways, on the way to the hospital in September, like, my mind wasn't 100% present.
Nope.
And you were just, what were you thinking during that ride to the hospital? I mean, you were pregnant, you were about to have a baby. What could you?
I mean, honestly, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was, I gotta do what I gotta do, whether he's gonna be like 100% like here or not, you know? But I mean, it definitely was like a triggering feeling of all the feelings that I felt the first time around of, man, this would be a lot more fun if my husband was 100% here, but I could just tell that you weren't, that you had other things on your mind.
Yeah. And that was like the hardest part of me is like, I didn't want to be thinking about, like, I was beating myself up at this point so much.
And of course, we all have the mindset, right? At least as women, we're like, okay, to be sure, we get married, things will change. Oh, to be sure, when we buy a house, things will change. To be sure, when you have a kid, like, having a kid changes everything. And you just keep having that mindset. So, of course, I'm like, to be sure, we're about to have a second kid.
Yeah.
Like, this is, he's going to be better.
Yeah, something's going to happen. And I think too, talking about that, about how all these life events you were saying, like as a woman, which I can't speak about, but that it was going to be the turning point.
Right.
And I think you remember throughout, mine was more like materialistic things.
Yep.
I wanted the house. I wanted a good career, the better paying job and the status, whatever it might have been. And I think it took me a long time, even after I got clean, to realize that all those things don't really matter at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
All those things that you were worried about, all the things that matter. And so my clean date, obviously, was, I think, exactly a week after our second was born.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely, I mean, it wasn't our perfect timing, but I think it was God's perfect timing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we stood there in the kitchen and I literally made you put your hand on the Bible and I looked at you and gave you the ultimatum over the Bible.
Yeah.
And we've been good since.
I mean, that we definitely have been good, comparatively speaking. There's obviously, ups and downs. We have our disagreements, but I think, I wake up and I don't show it to you all the time, my appreciation, but I wake up every morning and I thank God that, he allowed me to find someone like you. Cause I mean, just the support that you have given me throughout this entire journey and being a great mother to our kids, showing them what an independent woman you are. I think everything happens for a reason. And the main thing is, I don't think any of this would have been possible without you. So I just want to say thank you very much. And I love you.
I love you. I just can't believe the one thing that I've always known, just because we're talking about the guy who I've known forever, that I never thought I would see smoke a cigarette, to doing this. I think that is what has kept me hanging on for so long. So like you've always said, nobody starts off as a drug addict. Nobody starts off as a bad person.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has kept me hanging on, is just because I've always seen the silver lining. I've always seen the good that could come out of this.
Yeah.
And I've always seen your potential. I mean, you're so smart and dedicated and you're a very versatile person. It's like you can mold to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always held on because I've always known deep down that you were going to do something so amazing and share your story with so many people. And I'm just so glad that we're finally doing this.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. Like you said, like you always saw that in me, even when I didn't see it in myself.
Like literally always. I've always spoke to our friends and everyone. I'm like, I just know that Joey's going to do something so good with this.
Well, thank you very much.
Love you, babe.
And here's to another 5 years, hopefully. And plus more.
Absolutely.